Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, looking for supply and demand on the charts along with trend. We do this 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern time, here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Got like 8 inches of snow last night. Typical spring weather here in the Rockies. It's always kind of cool when it comes this time of the year because you go out in your shorts the next day, stand out with your tennis shoes and shorts on out in the snow. So it was a busy day in the markets. They really couldn't get much going most of the day. We ended up down, but you know, the divergence was extreme again, and we've seen this for quite a while now. And what it is a rotation for whatever reason out of large cap technology, out of small caps to some degree, and especially out of all the high flyers, or many of the high flyers. If you look at anything from Facebook to Chipotle or whatever, Amazon, go down the list of all the high flyers, they've all been hit pretty hard. And again, they were the ones taking the brunt of the selling again today. Dow Jones lost 0.45, less than a point, right? S&P's lost just 2 points, whereas composite down 38 3/4, NDX down 28.5, the Russell down 1168. So down almost 1% on the Russell, 0.75% on the NDX, and almost 1% on the composite, whereas the rest almost lost nothing. We had across the board, we had a decent amount of selling in those stocks. I'm looking at the advanced decline line here. Looks like it was about 6 to 4 on the NYSE, 6 to 4 on the AMEX, but 7 to 3 on the NASDAQ. That was again where the brunt of the selling was, and the down volume was about 7 to 3 as well. So you know, we're seeing continued selling in the high flyers, and so far that hasn't been able to take the rest of the market down. Now what it did do today, and you know, you can read this any way you want to, and so let me just go through the scenarios. You know, tomorrow we got the employment number. Today we had Draghi, and he shot blank bullets again, talking tough but doing nothing. And you know, to some degree the market didn't like that, but at the same time they really didn't sell them off in Europe as a result of it. They seemed to expect other things to come. So if I wanted to take the bearish view here, and I've got the NASDAQ up, I would look at these swing point highs, and this is what your classical TA folks are going to do. And they're going to say, oh wait, here's another one, right? Here's another swing point high, and they'll call it a swing point high right now. And they'll say, we've got 3 lower highs, okay? That's a downtrend. And that's exactly the way they're going to look at it, and they're going to talk about it, right? We got a downtrend on this time frame. Well, folks, A, this isn't a swing point high yet. It's going to take some more bars to figure that out. B, until you take this swing point low out, you really have a sideways trend. And so for me, you know, when I'm looking at it from a neoclassical perspective, I'm looking at this range and saying, hey, we got a big range going on, right? Because you've got a sideways trend. That's what a range is. So from that perspective, you know, I kind of disagree. And until you get more evidence that, in fact, this is going to be a swing point high and we're going to break a low, right? That's the way it reads to me. Now, you can get some idea of what's happening in different ways, and let's go to those ways. There's 2 more ways to look at this. One is you got to retest, regenerate, right? And so we come up, right up to the top of it. That's where we were yesterday. Test it. Volume did test a little bit higher, which says you're going to try again. And we regenerate lower. Now, if this begins to pick up steam, then that's in fact going to look like a retest and a successful regenerate to the downside. So that's another way to look at it. And from a neoclassical perspective, that could be bearish, except you had a little bit heavier volume as you came up here. So that jury is mixed, right? You failed on price but not on volume. Yeah, well, you succeeded on price, but you failed on volume on the regenerate so far. But it was very tight. I mean, this is 21.8, that was 20.7, right? So like, you know, just slightly more. Now the third way to look at this, if you look at the high yesterday, which was 42.86, and the high today, which is 42.84, you actually could be setting up an ABCD structure to the top, right, to the north, right, a bullish one. And so this pullback could be setting up the next leg, and lo and behold, where does it take you? To the swing point highs, right? Takes you up to those price points. So if in fact today was the low, if those employment numbers juice this thing tomorrow, and it takes off and it breaks this B point, then you've got a bullish ABCD structure on the way up. So I think it's extremely premature to say you got 3 lower highs, it's a downtrend. It's a little bit premature to think that the retest regen did not work. In other words, a bearish regenerate still could be the case. But on the flip side, you could have this sort of a structure setting up. And so when you have that, you have 3 different possibilities. Well, you really have 2 possibilities from a neoclassical perspective. One is you could be setting up an ABCD bullish ABCD structure. The other case being that you could have retested and are now regenerating lower. But mind you, the volume is actually lighter today, not heavier. And if you look elsewhere, that's really not what's going on, right? I mean, elsewhere, you've got huge divergence. So what it's telling you is, again, for whatever reason, and I try not to read too much into the reasoning, I just try to read the charts. This test back into this high, this is the retest, regenerate on the other side now. You got to break out here, and now you're regenerating back to the other side. Volume here, 52.7. Yesterday you came into it with 31. Today you come into it with 30. You come into it with less volume both days. What is that doing? Well, that looks to me like it's trying to regenerate back to the top side. And so that's 2 tests now of that regeneration area. A little sideways move, 2 bars, well, 1 bar now, sideways move, after a pretty good push, consolidating potentially to go higher. And this thing, folks, when it came down here today, it looked like this thing was, you know, all heck was going to break loose. And I was actually not in the office most of the day. And when I popped in here, and I'm going to pull over and bring the SPX up, when I popped in, it was selling off like all, you know, doodaddles here. It had broken down on these swing point lows intraday, and it was just diving. And, you know, I'm sure that was unnerving, and I'm going to pull it back 5 days. I'm sure that was unnerving to some extent, but here's that big bar up. What does it do? It comes into it, it tests it. We don't have volumes here. We can pull them up on the SPY, though, and look at them. You can see the volumes here on that big spike up, and I'm going to put it on, say, 15 minutes so you can see it more clearly. I'll put it on 30. You can see this big spike up, huge volume, right, as you come up. Next bar, pretty good volume. You come down into it with, in this case, what are we doing there? 3.3 on a 30-minute, and you're coming into 4, and you're coming into 8. That's probably not going to cut it. That was the buy today if you were watching and you tried to make your move, and it did flip around. So S&Ps, very strong on a comparative basis with respect to the rest of the market. These are regenerating, going to try to regenerate higher. Dow Jones looks the same, and if we go over to the Russell, and the Russell is, let me just type it in, the Russell, the NDX and the IXIC, the NASDAQ, both have ABCD structure potentials. This one actually made a slightly higher high, so it's really no B point yet. So we don't have that on the Russell. The Russell just came down. Again, the Russell was doing the same sort of thing, testing into the last. Remember, there was 2 of them. So you had a retest, regenerate at these highs right here, right? It was trying to regenerate back down. Right now it looks the same here. Potentially can generate back down the downside. So weakness in the three tech and the two techs and the small caps. Strength again in the listed issues. They keep rotating into those bigger names, it looks like, and they don't want to leave them. If we go over to the overseas markets, and I want to go to Europe since that's where the action was today, the CAC works higher off of Draghi's inaction. Doesn't care. They're still pushing money into the system in France in the way of government deficit spending. I'm sure that's going to come to an end at some point, but it hasn't yet. They get over the swing point high, they're going to push higher, or at least they're going to try to push higher, right? If you look at the DAX, DAX is coming up to the highs, and it had a big white bar today on the news, right, up and down. It's coming up to the highs, it's up that resistance zone. Doesn't have much juice as it's getting up there, but it's still hanging. Both of these have done ABCD structures. You would expect that both of these, both being the CACs and the DAX, would try to work sideways up here. And so the CACs over the highs, some sort of retest, regenerate, maybe go on there. DAX trying to get up over the highs, or at least to the highs. But they both completed ABCD structures, you can see there. Here's the FTSE, much lower, not as strong. Had two big bars off the bottom though, so the FTSE to me looks like it is going to try to work higher still. It was a failure today, lighter volume, get some sort of a small pullback, but I think these guys are probably going to trade sideways instead of down. If I look overseas, there's a lot of talk about Japan trying to push money into the system. You got the roll going again, going back up to test the swing point highs. If I look at Hong Kong, China announced that they're going to do some stimulus package, but it wasn't much, right? It was kind of a semi-stimulus, if you will. You're going to do something about some of the low-cost housing building there and so forth. Volume taping off. This thing's getting tired. This one's going to come back pretty soon. But they're all hanging. Why? Well, tomorrow we got the unemployment number here, and if you think about that number and you think about what it could tell you, there's always going to be a consensus of what the number can be. If it comes in about that consensus, okay, it's a no-op. That says the market can work higher. If it comes in lower, right, there's not as much unemployment. In other words, employment's more strong. Oh, good. Market is going to like that because the economy's getting better. Well, what if it comes in higher? I know there's more unemployment. Well, then it's because of the weather. Or it's and even as a result of that, even if it's not, the Fed's not going to taper. And so it's almost like a win-win. And I suspect to some degree that has been pushing price to some degree. It looks to me like you're probably going to get another pop tomorrow just looking at the indexes overseas and looking at the indexes here domestically. Let's go into the sectors and see if there's anything different there. I haven't checked these today, so we'll do them together. Let's flip through them and see what we got here. IYT was breaking out yesterday, so it's trying to come back and retest regen. Let's see, that high is 136.94. You got 430 on it. You got down to 136.76. No volume. This one is going to, this one's going to try to regenerate higher. It's not done. Semiconductors were strong again today. The semis have been leading. Actually, the semis have been the savior on the NDX. Sold off at the end. That looks like a test failure at the highs again. Maybe they'll get a pullback. So semis, although they didn't give it up today, they were up slightly today. They're testing that same bar twice now. Looks like a little pullback, slight pullback maybe coming here. XLB materials. So with China, with the little stimulus, the materials, they already got over that high yesterday. They're going for the other one. That top is 48.26, and we come into 48.26 on the dot. So you test it, you do 4.6 versus 6. That looks like a test failure to me. That looks like a pullback coming soon to a chart near you. XLE, this guy just powered higher again. Remember, this is the one that's the strongest right now. Power's higher, does spike up, comes back down a little bit. Nothing there to say it's going to turn quite yet. XLF. So we got the IYT, XLE still strong. XLF couldn't go anywhere, still range trading. And that one doesn't tell me anything. XLI. XLI, what is this one doing? It was trying to get to the highs, 53 and a quarter. Didn't quite get there. It's doing 9.2 into 12. That looks like a test, potential failure tomorrow. We'll see. So that's a test, a little bit more juice. XLK. And XLK, that's a test failure of the highs, back into the range. That one looks like it's going to range trade more. So that one's not going to help. So you have really just two strong ones. One that can help a little bit more, XLI, unless it picks up some juice, it's not going to do anything else. Here's the consumer staples, still looking fine, hanging at the top, digesting this huge move. XLU, also hanging at the highs. So that one still looks fine. XLV, we had biotech really taking it hard today. There's another one. That's actually a whole sector of high flyers. XLV actually hangs pretty well given that. I mean, if we look at the IBB, and I know one of my members is in this one, Dan, he had to be smiling today. That one's coming down, going to test those lows again like we were talking about, I think, last night. XLY, and this is discretionary, and they got hit a little bit today, and that actually looks like it's going to try to set up to go higher again. So sectors, not a lot of strength here, but not a lot of weakness either. This kind of plays into what I've talked about before, and I'm going to go back to the chart one more time, and that is that it appeared to me that we're going to get the 2 to 3 bar extension. We're 2 bars into it now. We really didn't get much extension today. I'm kind of thinking that tomorrow this number is probably going to power this thing higher. We're going to get over that 1900 number, and probably that's where we fade back in. You know, maybe you get the 1902, 1904, who knows? But you know, 1900, big round number. It's always a target. You're very close. This thing wouldn't sell off today when the NASDAQ was down big. That just tells me that it is strong. There are buyers sitting underneath this thing wanting to buy it. So looks to me like all you need is somebody to light a match, let this thing take off tomorrow. Let's see about our OX markets. I know the bonds popped up a little bit today. Let's see if there was any juice to it. Okay, so we got the TLT, the long end, no juice whatsoever. And that's not too good. So what is the low here? 107.61, and we close at 107.74. So you're back into the higher range, barely. And that's what it had to do today. It had to get back up there right after it broke down yesterday. So tomorrow's Friday. That kind of makes it an important day tomorrow because you want to see that thing hold in that higher range tomorrow. So what could do that? Well, the employment numbers could come in where we don't have as much employment. That could send bonds rallying again on the expectation that the tapering is going to stop, and could also send the market higher as a result. Maybe that's the scenario that's setting up here. There's not much here to suggest that's going to happen. That's one scenario that could take it higher. If the numbers come in strong, this one's going to have an ABCD structure to the downside. Let me look at the shorter end of the curve, IEF. And that one, no juice. Nobody wanted to put money into it today, did they, in front of that number? Gold was a little bit up today. Remember, gold got a spike up, faded back, and excuse me, it wasn't up. It was down about 10 and ended down about 3 or 4, and no volume. So they tried to sell it back down, and there were no sellers. And you know, when you get to a point like this, and you're sitting on the day in front of big numbers, you really can't read too much into these charts, right? When I'm looking at gold, I'm looking at the bonds, that number is going to drive these things tomorrow, one way or the other, right? And today was a no-op. Nobody wants to short it again, and nobody wants to buy it in front of the numbers. And that's the same in the bonds, and that's really what you're seeing here. So let's try to keep ourselves from reading too much into it. Let's go look and see where something's already happened, and that's the euro. So we had the Draghi won't do anything today. Oh, and look at this. So the euro sells off, even though, wow, is that real? Hang on just a second here. I'm going to pull up my futures charts and take a look at this euro and see what it looks like on the charts today. And I don't have it on a machine I can show you, so just bear with me a second. Let me take a quick look at it. Yeah, they did sell it off. Well, that is interesting. Huh. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what to make of that. So let me think for a second. So Draghi doesn't do anything. If he did something, you would expect the euro to sell off. He didn't do anything, and it sold off with volume. 135.40, 135.41. So it tests into the swing point high, and the only reason I'm picking that is because you got a heavy volume swing point high. Yeah, but that's an ABCD structure down. So that's going to make it hard on gold because the dollar had to have risen on this. Looks to me like it's going to come to the bottom. Let me see what the dollar did. So on the dollar, you get over the swing point high and you got no volume, and you're going into another one. And you're coming into the retest regen finally. Well, actually, that one already been retested. And this is an ABCD up also. Well, folks, this to me looks like the dollar is going to keep rolling higher here. Right? Coming up to this area. And that's where all your volume is. Right there. Interesting. So that should be difficult for gold. Now, it's a Friday, unemployment numbers. Watch gold tomorrow. If gold can keep from falling tomorrow, that tells you, and we're going to pop to the gold chart now, that will tell you that there's underlying strength in this gold market. And we've been waiting for a clue as to whether that's true or not. Right now, we don't have any indication of that quite yet. You know, if it tests into this bar and it can't give it up and flips around and the dollar's strong, then that's really going to be telling us something. So that'd be worth watching. Let me see. Anything else here? Let's look at the oil market real quick. Let me pop over and see what you folks may have for me. Nothing happening there. Okay, so Dan, I'm thinking if the market jumps higher, I'm going to close my BIS trade, the ultra short. What do you think? Well, let's go back and look. I'm not going to look at it. I'm going to go back. And I assume that's on the IBB, isn't it? Is that on the NASDAQ biotech, I believe? Let me pull up the weekly and see what it looks like. So on the weekly, yeah, that's a hard call because I think you're going to get more. Yeah, I would if this market starts to rally, then maybe you take a little bit off. The problem is, and did you say this? It tested into this bar, 324. Yeah. Okay, so you saw it too. Nice job, man. Nice read. You tested into the bottom of this bar. That's where all the volume was, right? And that's where it held. And so now, again, I mean, you can look at this many ways, and I'm sure if you're if you're thinking from a classical perspective, right, this is a head and shoulders inverse. And it has the right volume characteristics. You get heavy volume, still heavy volume, but lighter. And then you get even lighter volume over here. That's the way that's supposed to set up when you're watching it from a Edwards and McGee type of, perspective. And so yeah, I think I would probably, I would, if this doesn't break down in the morning to come down here and test these lows, I would probably close it, take my money, wait, do it again. That's correct. So, yep, that's a good read, and yes, I believe that's exactly what I would do. Okay, so let me see here. We got a couple minutes left. What is it I want to tell you? I'm not sure what else I want to tell you. I think tomorrow, one way or the other, this market's going to find a way to push higher. I don't know that it's going to do much more than that. You're always looking for clues. What I would be watching is the Russell. I'd want to know if the Russell can flip back around, and I'd be watching the NDX, the IXIC. Right? These are the guys that are going to tell you what's going on, right? Because the S&P, if the S&P pushes higher, that's not going to tell you anything because it's simply going to get over the highs. And after a retest, a regen, that's what it should do. As a matter of fact, I think, let me look at it one more time. We made a higher high, didn't we, today? Or did we? Yep, barely. So you don't even have an ABCD structure to work with. The only one you have to work with is done, right? I mean, on this time frame. You had one here, right? And now that one is done. That's why you're going sideways now. And when this first broke, I suggested that it would be 2 to 3 bars and we'd probably come back. And I still think that. So if we get that rally tomorrow, I suspect it's probably going to be about the extent of what you get before you get some sort of a retrace. What would change that? Well, it wouldn't be this. It would be over here. It would be these guys. That's why you want to watch them. Folks, have a great night. Thanks a lot for joining me. Tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Well, actually, I won't. Tomorrow's Friday. I'll see you Sunday. Except for the members, I'll see you guys on Sunday morning with the broadcast for the weekend. Take care. Good night, folks.